Welcome back once again, friends. I know it's late. I don't care. It'll be coming soon. We'll get into that schedule, into that rhythm. Now my rhythm is unfortunately posting these picks late, but I'm not going to talk anymore about that. Fight night, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. A lot of you may be thinking, who's Shamil Gaziev? That's very valid. Don't worry about that. We'll get to that when we get to it. I'm giving my picks, predictions, just my breakdowns of every single fight, any insight I have, the vibes. Sometimes it's spooky, sometimes I see things that are spooky about them, and we'll break those down as we come to them, starting off with the early prelims, obviously, ending off with the main event. Let's see, anything else to say? This fight card is kind of a filler card in my opinion, but that's not always a bad thing. This, I think, is actually a deceptively good filler card. I think there's going to be a couple good finishes at least, a couple of intense fights. It's not too bad. Going to be some early fights, For me on the East Coast, I'm in New York, so these fights are going to start at like 1:30, 1:45, something like that. Which, I don't mind. It's a nice change-up, I guess, low-key, once in a while. A bit short of a card. I think it's 11 fights. But hey, we got a nice little event coming up next week. That's juicy. That video for picks for $2.99, I am going to try to put out actually on Tuesday. You can expect that pick video on Tuesday. Fight night, Rozenstruik versus Gaziev. I'm getting right into it. Christian Leroy Duncan versus Claudio Ribeiro. I know I'm not giving these breakdowns in order. It was just the order of how I wrote them down, how I read them initially. And then when I got back to them, obviously, and fights got updated, it changed up, but I digress. There will be timestamps in the description, so just feel free to scroll down there. Pick out whichever fight you want, and I will obviously meet you there. Christian Leroy Duncan versus Claudio Ribeiro. Christian Leroy Duncan comes into this fight at 28 years old. He's 6'2". He has a 79-inch reach, matched up with Claudio Ribeiro, who's 3 years older, coming into this fight at 31 years old, 6'1" tall, and he has a 77-inch reach. CLD's record is 9-1 as a professional, 9 wins, 1 loss. 2 of those wins and his only loss have come in the UFC. 7 of his wins have come by KO TKO. 2 of those were in the UFC. He has 1 win by submission, and he's 1-1 when it comes to decisions, and his 1 loss is by decision, obviously, in the UFC. Christian Leroy Duncan is coming on this fight with good momentum. Claudio Ribeiro got KO'd by Roman Kopylov, which is bad. Like, people are trying to downplay that and be like, Roman Kopylov maybe isn't as good as we thought he was. Nah, he's good. Claudio got fucked. That is what it is. Claudio is dangerous, though. This isn't just like a walk in the park, really. I'm going with Christian Leroy Duncan to take this one. If he can remain calm, be competent defensively, just not get cracked by a giant shot from Claudio Ribeiro on the feet, then we're chilling. I think we're chilling, actually. Claudio Ribeiro's coming into this fight 11-4 as a professional, 1-2 in the UFC. 1 of his wins and 2 of his 4 losses have come in the UFC. He's 11-2 when it comes to KO TKO. He's picked up a knockout and he's been KO TKO'd twice in the UFC. He has 1 loss by submission and decision. He is dangerous, but he did really get KO'd fucking bad in his last fight. Actually got frozen. Christian Leroy Duncan, a little younger, a little longer. Maybe not as brawlic, but a little bigger, I think. I think he'll get this one done. Moving on to a fight that I'm actually kind of excited about, because I think a lot of people are overlooking or downplaying this man, Loik Radzhabov versus Abdul Kareem Al-Selwady. Now, Loik Radzhabov, I think, is actually deceptively not bad. No, that's too crazy. But he's not the worst. He's really not the worst. He's coming into this fight at 33 years old. He's 5'11". He has a 69-inch reach, the same as Abdul Al-Selwady, who also has a 69-inch reach. He is 5 years younger at 28 years old, and he stands 5'8". Loik is coming into this fight, or I'll just say Radzhabov is coming into this fight, the more veteran fighter with a record of 17 wins, 5 losses, and a draw. He's 1-1 in the UFC. He fought in PFL for a bit. He went 4-4 and picked up his only draw there. And I get Abdul. Abdul's 15-3. He's making his UFC debut. I get people backing Abdul because they think that not they think, they've seen, he finishes dudes on the feet. You know, he swarms dudes, he brutalizes dudes. He can grapple a little bit, smother dudes if there's a real skill gap in between them in the grappling department. He can go the distance, which is actually kind of not it's not that good for my son Radzhabov, as he's 5-4 when it comes to decisions. So 5 of his 17 wins and 4 of his 5 losses as a professional have come just through the way of decision. Funny enough, he's actually won a fight by decision in the UFC, though. That was his win. Now, Abdul Kareem, I think, is chinny. I've seen him get confident, and he has a right to be confident. You know, he does have some power of his own. Loik, I don't think, is the biggest threat. Like, he can put people out, but I don't think he's the biggest threat on the feet. But I think maybe if he catches Abdul Kareem, man, I'm just not, I have no faith in Abdul Kareem just to not get, like, cracked. He's on a 6-fight win streak. He has big momentum. I think this is also another reason why people are following him, because he is coming into this fight with momentum. Loik is not doing that good. But you can see Abdul Kareem get laid out bad. I forget his fight, but there was one by head kick, and I was like, whoa. It was like a knee or a head kick, and I was like, holy shit. Like, and he got not fully dropped, but he got put on one knee earlier in that fight. And he laughed it off, you know. He was confident, but then he got sent, literally. He got sent. So I'm going with Loik, actually. I'm going with my boy Radzhabov to get this one done against Abdul Kareem. Also, Loik I think he's a way better grappler than Abdul Kareem. I think that if he chooses to grapple heavy, he might be able to smother him and just hold him to a boring decision if that's the case. But I actually think this fight shouldn't be too bad. Going with Loik. He is older. Like I said, at 33 years old and 28, that 5-year age gap that's when things start to get interesting, but I don't think it's too crazy. I don't think it's in such a negative aspect for Radzhabov. Abdul Kareem is a threat, though. He is a legit threat. Moving on to Javid Basharat versus Amin Zahabi. Now, when I was saying in the beginning of this, maybe I didn't mention it actually, but another scary thing about this card is that the odds are skewed. The betting odds are so fried, absolutely fried. They're so wide on some fights. I think these are decent matchups, honestly. Like I said, this is a filler card, but these are deceptively decent matchups. You know, it might be pretty good. It might be pretty good. I give a lot of faith to the UFC, but I don't care. Anyways, back to the picks. Javid Basharat versus Amin Zahabi. Well, I'm going with Javid Basharat like everyone else, pretty much. Amin Zahabi is no joke. He's no joke. In the first round, it might be spooky. It really might be spooky. Who knows? But Javid Basharat, many of you might remember, he got Victor Henry's balls. He was like, he got my dick and balls, man. He was like, he got my dick and balls, man. That was great, but I felt really bad for Victor Henry. I actually picked my boy Victor Henry in that, I'm pretty sure. But he's like, he got my old dick and balls, man. The doctor was like, no, he didn't. No, he didn't get the dick and balls. But anyways. Javid Basharat versus Amin Zahabi. I'm going with Javid Basharat just because I think the longer this fight goes, Javid is consistent. If there's one thing about him, he's consistent. He's coming into this fight at 28 years old. Even though he's only had 3 fights, or I guess 4 in the UFC. He's coming into this fight at 28 years old, 5'9", and he has a 69-inch reach. Amin Zahabi, 8 years his senior at 36 years old. That's important to note. 5'8", with a 68-inch reach. Amin Zahabi is 10-2. He's 4-2 in the UFC, which is an impressive record. Javid matches up at 14-0, undefeated with a single no contest. That no contest taking place in the UFC alongside 3 victories. Now, Javid is pretty well-rounded, you know. Amin Zahabi somewhat too. I just think the youth, the kind of grindy nature of Javid is going to give him this one, really. I'm going with Javid, but this is another one. Odds maybe a little too fried. Too fried. Coming up on spooky hours. And I'm going to give a little disclaimer right now. This is 100% emotional. This one is going to be 100% emotional. This is the emotional pick. I've kind of unfortunately been trapped in emotional picks. Just one emotional pick per video. Jamie Pickett versus Eric Anders. Now, if you say Jamie Pickett online, if you talk about Jamie Pickett to people, they're going to say bum, should not be in the UFC, all that good stuff. But then eventually you come across people saying, yo, I know Jamie Pickett in real life, I train with him, blah, 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 blah. And these things I listed, the scenario I kind of presented was actually happened to me recently. The reason why I fucked with Jamie Pickett originally is because literally he's just from Wilmington, North Kakalaki. Now, Wilmington, North Carolina has a special place in my heart. I go down there every once in a while. I got family down there. It's a nice place, actually. It's not too bad. Not too shabby. There's a spot in my heart for Wilmington. So, if Wilmington's standing up and they're sending someone to fight, I'm probably going to back them, honestly. Jamie Pickett, unfortunately, I'm going to get to the physicals, although really physicals and record here isn't going to matter because I'm going emotional. This is 100% emotional. I'm going to pick Jamie Pickett. If you want to skip that right now, please just go to the timestamp, skip to the next fight because I'm going to continue on. Eric Anders probably wins this fight 7 out of 10 times. I'm going with Jamie Pickett, though. I do not care. I do not give a fuck. I do not give a fuck. Jamie Pickett's coming into this fight he's coming into this fight at 35 years old, 6'2", 80-inch reach. He has a 5-inch reach advantage over Eric Anders, who's 36 years old, 6'1", and has a 75-inch reach. Jamie Pickett, as I was saying, people will usually come to it, not usually, but sometimes people will come to his defense saying, yo, I know him, I train with him. He's strong as hell, blah, blah, blah. He's not a can. And that's what went down with me. Someone was just talking about Jamie Pickett. They called him a can. And I was like, he let down Wilmington a little bit, unfortunately. And then someone hopped in and was like, he ain't no can. I'm pretty sure that's what he said verbatim. Guy responds, it's a little bit of back and forth, but then I was just asking him, we were just talking, basically, just in YouTube comments, literally. And anyone could say anything, but, if you're checking that you trained with a man like Jamie Pickett, I'm probably going to believe you, why would you lie about that? But I digress. He said he trains with him. I think he said he was a single dad, too, and he's a good dude, and he's a good training partner, blah, 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 stuff like that. But then he ended it, because I was like, wow, that's interesting, that's good to know, thanks for, telling me all that stuff. And he said something, because I said it's tough, he hasn't shown us really much in the UFC, he's just been given nightmare matchups. He did get hit in the nuts, and that Bo Nickel fight was a nightmare matchup, and he got hit in the nuts bad. But the other guy ended the conversation essentially by saying, Jamie Pickett's a good dude, and we can wish him well, but not much more. That stuck with me. We can wish him well, but not much more. That's what I was thinking a lot about for this fight, and this pick specifically. Really, when it comes down to picking fights, or even if you really like fighters, you're a real fan, you love a certain dude or some chick that's fighting, ultimately, you can only wish them well. Not much more. In this instance, though, I actually can do more. I'm going to pick Jamie Pickett. I don't care. If Jamie Pickett gets absolutely smoked, that's probably the last we'll see of him. And that's okay. That's okay. This pick really is not reliant or based in logic or facts, anything like that. Because that's the thing. Jamie Pickett hasn't shown us anything. He hasn't shown us anything. but I'm going for the man from Wilmington, from Wilmywood, North Kakalaki. Let's move on. This was what I actually had written down before. It was a rumored fight, you could say, Raul Rosas Jr. versus Pretty Ricky Turcios. Obviously, that shit fell out, fake news, all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. I would have still stayed with Raul. Moving on to Vinicius Oliveira versus Bernardo Sopai. Spooky hours. Definitely spooky hours. I switched my pick. My original pick was Vinicius Oliveira. But Bernardo Sopai is actually a dog. And so is Vinicius, though. That's the thing. But Vinicius... I trust Vinicius less, honestly. Like, Bernardo, like... One thing that has to be noted, Bernardo took this fight on super late notice. He's flying in from, like, Sweden. He had a fight. I don't know if it might be fizzled now, but he had a fight booked for next weekend. Very spooky. I'll start off with the physicals as always. Vinicius Oliveira is coming into this fight at 28 years old. He stands 5'9". He has a 70.5-inch reach advantage. 70.5-inch reach. Sopai is 23 years old. He's 5'6", and even though I saw some of his fights and stuff, I never saw his reach listed, but he looks like he actually has small arms, low-key. Like, I don't know. That might be spooky. He looks smaller. Well, he not even looks. 5'6" to 5'9". He is smaller than Vinicius, but Bernardo has power of his own, you know. He has power of his own. He's very young. He's never been finished. That's the thing about Vinicius. Vinicius has been finished. Like, and Vinicius actually has been fucked up, too. Like, the doctor's stoppage, if I'm correct, like, Vinicius has fought this man, Christian Quinones. Christian Quinones got the better of him, but that stoppage was a little strange. I think that was in Combate America. On paper, Vinicius is closer to UFC caliber than Bernardo, right? The thing about Vinicius is that he's often the own, like, it's literally his fault sometimes. He tweaks out, gets confident, and that's why he loses shit sometimes. Like, it's a little spooky. I think if Bernardo can literally cut in there, this fight I don't think is going the distance. If you forced me to bet, I would bet on it just not going the distance, honestly. But Bernardo, man, if Bernardo can just get inside and land something nasty, something mean, I think it'll be over for Vinicius. Vinicius doesn't particularly move his head off the center line too much. He gets tagged, but he tags people back, though. Vinicius throws, and he throws long and heavy. Vinicius throws very long and very heavy. Sometimes it leaves him in extremely bad positions. Sometimes it works out very well for him. We'll just have to see. I'm going with Bernardo. Moving on. Ludovic Klein versus AJ Cunningham. I now know that this is, I think, one of the earlier fights, but this is just in the original format that I got it. Ludovic Klein is coming into this fight at 29 years old, 5'7", 72.5-inch reach, against AJ Cunningham, who is 29 years old, 5'10", and has a 71-inch reach. Going with Ludovic Klein, a lot of confidence in this one because AJ Cunningham, it's spooky. This is spooky. Ludovic Klein was already originally supposed to fight someone who's booked against Joel Alvarez. He's coming on a 3-fight win streak. He has an 80% finish rate. He has a 20-win, 4-loss, and 1-draw record. 4 of those wins, 2 of those losses, and the single draw took place in the UFC. I just think the better all-around fighter, and honestly, I'm expecting something spooky, but we'll have to see. I read something about an interesting trend, because I think Ludovic Klein is the favorite, but it's something like, I don't even want to say it. I don't know if this is a fact, but it's like Ludovic Klein, like, fights where he was the favorite, he loses. And Loki fights where he's a dog, he wins. Something like that. Either way, it doesn't particularly matter. I'm going with Ludovic Klein. Not spending too much time on that one. Moving on to Matt Schnell versus Steve Erceg, a.k.a. Steve Carell. Loki looks like Steve Carell to me. But Matt Schnell coming into this fight at 34 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach, matched up with Steve Young, who is 6 years younger at 28 years old, 5'8", with a 68.5-inch reach. A bit of an interesting match, you know, and not as one-sided as some people may think, because a lot of people were saying that before Steve Erceg, like, Steve Erceg has kind of maybe not done as well as he should have. Like, he's done very well, obviously. He's 11-1. He's 2-0 in the UFC right now. Compared to Matt Schnell, who is 16-7, 6-5 with 1 no contest in the UFC, and has been KO'd brutally a couple times. Matt Schnell has 2 wins and 4 losses by KO TKO in his professional career. All 4 of those KO TKO losses took place in the UFC. The thing about Matt, though, is Matt actually, he has pulled off a spooky comeback before. He's not that good, though. Ultimately, he's not that good. His last win was back in 2022, the latter half of 2022. A little interesting fact about this man, Steve Erceg, he actually lost to this man, Dennis Bondar, in the regional scene, though. But that was a long time ago. I think Steve Erceg has good wins in the UFC. I'm not as fully sold on him as other people are. He's good, but we'll have to see. I'm picking Steve Erceg to win this fight because Matt Schnell I don't think will be able to survive. I think they're setting... I don't want to say they're setting Steve Erceg up to get a KO TKO win, but something like that. If that were to happen, would the UFC hate that? Like, moving on to another Spooky Hours fight. This is not an emotional pick. Umar Nurmagomedov versus Beksat Almakhan. The Kazakh man. Making his UFC debut against a man that apparently no one wants to fight. Kids just don't want to fight him. Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar is undefeated. He is 16-0. 4 of those wins took place in the UFC. He's 28 years old, 5'8", with a 69-inch reach. He's deceptively big, actually. Beksat is 26 years old. He's 5'7", and again, his reach not really able to be found. He is 17-1, making his debut. 13 wins by KO TKO. Only loss coming by way of submission, but he has 2 victories by submissions and 2 decision wins. He does have really crisp boxing and kickboxing, and I think actually Beksat has really decent defensive and some occasionally offensive, depending on the position, grappling and wrestling, you know. Enough that maybe, I'm giving a lot of faith to it, that maybe he can survive. I don't feel good about this pick because I'm picking Beksat, but I might switch right now. Because as much as I would love to pick Beksat, we got to come back to reality, right? We got to come back to reality. Umar does have striking. He does have grappling. Like, he can go the distance. I want to pick Beksat. He's deceptively brutal, I think. I think other people are going to eat on this fucking card, but I might just tweak it by trying to be a little contrarian and picking dudes like Beksat, man. Like, Jamie Pickett is an emotional pick. That's and I'm calm if that one just goes out, if Jamie Pickett just gets murked. It is what it is. But with this one, it's just like, I actually do kind of think Beksat has a chance, like a legitimate chance. And not to say, I think Jamie Pickett has a fucking chance. Do not get it twisted, but I think the theme for this card is opportunity. Opportunity, you know? Just to recap, I think it's opportunity, you know? Claudio Ribeiro, this is your chance to come back and maybe take out a dude who actually has a little bit of momentum behind him in CLD. Loik, same thing. You know, Abdul, no one's heard of him. He's making his debut, but let's just see if you can get back, if you can get in the win column for real. Get back in the win column. Same thing. Amin Zahabi. For real, Jamie Pickett, show us something. This is the UFC saying, show us something. Eric Anders, this is just like, yo, maybe this will be an easy fight for you, but we gotta see. We gotta fucking see. We gotta fucking see. But Jamie Pickett, this is do or die for Jamie Pickett. Opportunity. Vinicius Oliveira versus Bernardo Sopai. Sopai taking this fight, short notice, has a fight booked next weekend, flying across from Sweden to hit this. You know, like, he's stepping up. He's taking that big opportunity. Ludovic Klein, this one really isn't too much. I guess AJ Cunningham stepping up to take this fight, sure. Matt Schnell versus Steve Erceg, in a negative sense, it's kind of like, Steve, this is your chance, you know, get another KO TKO, here you go. But with Beksat too, this is opportunity, here you go, take it. Take this fight against a monstrous dude, and we'll treat you well. Moving on, Beksat's gonna, I might stay with Beksat, I might switch by the end, but for right now, I'm staying with Beksat, man. Moving on to Alex Perez versus Muhammad Mokaev. Alex Perez coming into this fight at 31 years old, 5'6", 65.5-inch reach. Muhammad Mokaev, 8 years younger, 23 years old. 5'7" tall with a 70-inch reach, 4.5-inch reach advantage for Muhammad Mokaev, who is undefeated. He is 10-0. 5 of those 10 wins have come in the UFC. He has 1 win by KO TKO, 6 submission victories. 4 of those took place in the UFC, and 3 decisions. This man is on a fucking 34-fight win streak, including his amateur career. Spooky hours. Alex Perez, a veteran himself, with a 24-7 record, 6 wins and 3 losses in the UFC, 5-1 when it comes to KO TKO. He's picked up 2 of those KO TKOs, and he's been KO TKO'd 1 time in the UFC. 7-5 when it comes to submissions, 2 wins and 2 losses, both in the UFC. 12-1 when it comes to decisions, 2 decision victories in the UFC. Now, it's very spooky. But Muhammad Mokaev has shown us. He has shown us. He's tested him. He's not fully 100%, I guess. You can never fully 100% prove yourself, but Muhammad Mokaev has done just that, essentially. And the same thing kind of with this man, Umar, fuck. Oh, God. Alex Perez, though, no slouch. He still is deadly. Major age gap and size difference, I think, in favor of Muhammad Mokaev, though. You know, it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm picking Muhammad Mokaev, and I'm confident in that pick, honestly. I think he's just going to get it done, but by finish. The Beksat pick is kind of haunting me, because I can't tell you how much I want to be the dude that picks Beksat if Beksat just KOs him with like some clean hooks, a little boxing combination. Like, please. But reality, will that happen? Probably not. Probably not. Probably not. Moving on. Vitor Petrino versus Tyson Pedro. Co-main event of the evening. Vitor Petrino coming into this fight at 26 years old, 6'2", 77.5-inch reach. Tyson Pedro, 6 years older, at 32 years old, 6'3", with a 79-inch reach, 1.5-inch reach advantage for Tyson Pedro. Vitor Petrino is undefeated, 10-0, 3 wins, 3 of those 10 wins coming in the UFC. Tyson Pedro is 10-4. He has 6 wins and 4 losses in the UFC. He has had 10 fights in the UFC. And that's why I'm going to go on to say that Tyson Pedro he's tested. He has been tested, you know. And he had decent wins earlier on. He's really not bad at all. He's not bad, not the best, but he's not bad. Vitor Petrino kind of surging. He's a real prospect, low-key. 80% finish rate for my boy Vitor Petrino. 7 wins by KO TKO, picking up 1 of those in the UFC, as well as the Dana White Contender Series. He also has a submission victory in UFC as well as one decision in the UFC. He's still building up experience a little bit, I think, though, Vitor Petrino. I'm leaning towards Petrino, and ultimately, actually, I'm going to pick Petrino. But I think Petrino does need a little bit more experience. Tyson Pedro is a bit more of a skill check, I think, than people realize. This should be a good fight. Tyson Pedro does give off a real threat with the hands and feet, especially in the first round. Vitor Petrino has been hit, although Tyson has been hit as well, obviously. We'll just have to see. Vitor Petrino looking to keep his undefeated streak going. Moving on to the main event. We will have a bit to talk about for this one. Jairzinho Biggie Boy Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. No nickname for Shamil Gaziev. Now, Shamil Gaziev, if you were wondering, who's Shamil Gaziev? Like, he's co-headlining the card, so who is he? Well, he's had one fight in the UFC a while back. I don't remember what card it was exactly. Was it 297? Was it Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington? I don't remember what card it was, but I had picked Martin Buday to win versus Shamil Gaziev in Shamil Gaziev's debut. Now, I don't think that was a bad pick, honestly. It was just, the performance was just like, it had me reeling. I was just like, God damn, he got violated. It had me feeling foolish. Ultimately, I don't think it was the worst pick. Not the best pick, but not the worst. Because Martin Buday, if you remember, he was on like a 4 or 5 fight win streak in the UFC. Granted, not the most impressive string of wins, but they were wins nonetheless, you know. And he had been tested occasionally in those wins. Shamil Gaziev, we hadn't really seen him do anything. And even on the regional scene, I had seen him get hurt, you know. Not violated, but hurt. He does have a little bit of grappling skill that he doesn't often use. He usually just chooses to slug it out with dudes, and he wins, but let's see. Now, he violated Martin Buday. He beat the fuck out of Martin Buday, violated Martin Buday, Shamil Gaziev, that is. And I thought to myself, Shamil Gaziev has potential. He really does have potential. He's deceptively, like, strong. He has a good amount of muscle, like, under his fat. You can tell. He's deceptively nimble. He moves around a little bit. He has potential to be good, honestly. Jairzinho, though, we have seen in the UFC. We've seen him lay dudes out. Again, you could say some of these dudes aren't the best. Sure, that's fine. He has been taken down and subbed. That's also fine. All of his 7 wins in the UFC, he has a 7-5 UFC record, 13-5 record overall as a professional. All of his 7 wins are by KO TKO for good reason. This dude actually has spooky power. His jab is terrifying. That's what we have to see ultimately with Shamil. Can he survive the jab? Shamil's coming into this fight 34 years old, 6'4". He's a huge guy. 6'4", 78-inch reach. Same reach as Jairzinho, Biggie Boy, Rozenstruik. 78-inch reach, 6'2". 35 years old. Now, Shamil is 12-0 undefeated. Jairzinho is 13-5, like I said. But that 12-0, he has been hurt in some fights. It's not like they're just walk in the parks every time. Walks in the park. Jairzinho, as we know, he got KO'd by Francis. It is what it is. He is fast, though. Like, people get KO'd by Francis. That is what it is. Shamil is headlining against another dude who always gets main events. Shamil arguably doesn't really deserve this at all. There is a possibility. I'm picking Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I know MMA Guru is also picking Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I was going to pick Jairzinho regardless. This man, Shamil, I can't just go with him after one great performance against Martin Buday. Like, I can't do that. He was great against Martin Buday. Like, he consumed him. I'm scared that he's going to consume Biggie Boy, possibly. But if Biggie Boy can literally just crack him first, I don't know how Shamil takes that. I really don't know how Shamil takes that. Going back to opportunity, I think they're telling Shamil, this is your opportunity to get Jairzinho Rozenstruik's role. You will be the new heavyweight dude that we'll give these random main events to. And you can keep building up from there and eventually get the title shot. We'll put you on the fast track, basically. We'll get you real hype if you can take out Jairzinho. Jairzinho, you want to keep your nice little spot, keep getting these main events? Finish this fucking guy. Expose this guy, Shamil. That's what I think this is. That's the opportunity. Opportunities. Going back to opportunity being the theme. This is Shamil's test. This is his opportunity to take out this man Jairzinho, a legitimate name, even though he only has one win in the UFC against Martin Buday, who was okay. You know, I'm coping a little bit on that, but Jairzinho, man, he has kicks too. Shamil Gaziev is very aggressive. Now, I wonder, did Shamil just steamroll Martin Buday because Martin Buday literally got hurt instantly and was just getting rocked, was thrown out of his element instantly? Like, possibly. I think Jairzinho is a better striker than Shamil, though. A way better striker than Shamil. We'll just have to see. We'll have to see. It's scary. I'm going with Jairzinho, man. Because I can't go with Shamil just yet. Shamil wins this fight, he's proved a lot to me. Obviously, depending on how he wins, but we'll have to see. I'm going with Jairzinho. I'm going to recap everything super quick. This one actually will be in order, I believe, so you won't have to. There'll be no reason to even jump around. Going with my boy Loik, Radzhabov, Ludovic Klein, Christian Leroy Duncan, Javid Basharat, Bernardo Sopai, Jamie Pickett, man. We need this one, Jamie Pickett. Emotional pick, I don't care. Eric Anders will probably win, but Jamie Pickett, bro, for Wilmington, brother. For Wilmington, man. For Wilmywood. Steve Urseg, Beksat Almakan, Mohamed Makayev, Vitor Petrino, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik to round it out. Again, this card actually has potential to be pretty good. A filler card, but decent enough nonetheless. I think there'll be a decent amount of finishes. For example, Christian Leroy Duncan versus Claudio Ribeiro. I don't think that's going the distance at all. Bernardo Sopai versus Vinicius Oliveira. I don't think that's going the distance. Same thing with Beksat, same thing with Mohamed Makayev, and Vitor Petrino, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. But maybe Shamil fucking fucks Jairzinho for 3 rounds. Who knows? Those are the picks. Kind of a short video. I was a bit busy this week just with other stuff, but came in. I do this for you. You know, I think if you're trying to make money this card, it's going to be rough because the odds are blown the fuck out. As of Friday, at least, the day before these fights. There might be a lot of value, honestly, on, like, arbitrage, if anything. I don't know. I don't really ever at that. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see a lot of live odds. Ultimately, it'll come down to live odds. I think for me, I will maybe hit a little parlay or two. I might even hit a back parlay, like betting against my picks, just because these odds are nutty. They're so nutty. Like, they're so nutty. If you watched this long, thank you very much. Like the video if you like it. Dislike it if you dislike it. Any thoughts that you have on these fights, any of your picks, if you're fading me, whatever, please let me know. I'd love to talk about them. Anything at all. Again, thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more. I'll always hit little live reactions on my shorts, obviously, during the fights. If the fight ends in a somewhat spectacular fashion or an upset or something like that, if I'm really coping hard, I won't hit the live reaction, but you can see that tomorrow, like I said, in my shorts. Eventually, might set up a little stream, fight companion stream. We'll get there when we get there. Thank you for watching. As always, big kiss.